Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Triggered For, but it's not just another one. This is our first Deep Space Nine episode, the debut episode, the Emissary. It's All Been Triggered For. But you know what? Be an emissary. Be an emissary. Become a Patreon member. Patreon.com/IBD. It's so simple. It's so easy. It's so inexpensive. You'll be like, why didn't I do this a long time ago? And you probably won't have a good answer. You know who does have a good answer? We do. This is the Emissary on It's All Been Triggered For.
We have new microphones set up for this episode. Welcome out to It's All Been Triggered For. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. We're here to talk Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Emissary, the 2-hour pilot. First impressions.
I know, it seems like it might turn into a series. I think it has a very good chance of being picked up by someone.
Yeah? You think so?
Now? You mean now? Or
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
This is probably the episode that I'd seen the most often of Deep Space Nine, but it's still been a very long time. I felt like I was going to remember more than I did. And I'll just say that much as far as that goes. I mean, it's just somehow I managed to put a lot of the characters out of my head. I think partly because I knew it was coming up. And I was like forcing myself not to really think about it too much, and I just wanted to kind of let it be fresh again. And there were some things that I wasn't surprised by as much as, obviously I would have been if I hadn't seen it. But there were a couple of layers I felt like I'd missed. See, I think the last time I would have watched it would have been about 2003 or so, somewhere around there.
Okay. That's been a while then.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years. What'd you think, Steve?
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a long time and how, DS9 got off to a slow start and that kind of stuff. I actually enjoyed the pilot. We'll get into some of the flaws, I guess. But
How dare you?
As far as the and we talked about it as we watched this together. Lots of the exposition, which you're gonna get in a pilot, makes sense. And I wrote down at one point, and I think Jimmy, you said almost the same time. Oh, you said we've met all the main cast, and I had I finally wrote down meet the players on this, blah blah blah. But so far I find the folks engaging. I thought I liked the setup of essentially, and I wrote this down too. What a dump! The idea of that this is not your flagship starship. It definitely feels like and we've got Picard sending us off to spin-off world. I guess it's all in the Star Trek universe, but either way, it still feels like the way spin-offs worked for a long time. I guess they still do.
Yeah.
As far as, all right, I'm here so you know what universe you're in, and good luck to you, and sets them off. So you definitely get this is TNG, and it's kind of that world, but also some indications that no, this is kind of a darker side, and again, when I say darker, not as light, I guess is actually a better way to put it. So far, I know we'll find some other things. But yeah, so I enjoyed it, and we'll get into it.
DS9 is my favorite series. I think I mentioned most of season 1's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Except I thought the pilot was good.
Yeah.
The pilot was fine. I liked the pilot.
Worst episode so far.
Well, yes. I liked the pilot. I did not love it as much as I thought I did, especially part 2. I liked part 1 a lot more than I liked part 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll get into it, but the whole trippy wormhole aliens were not my favorite thing, and they take up so much of the running time in part 2. I will say there were also some interesting character things in the book. I read the novelization in the last 24 hours or 48 hours.
That's right.
I don't have a ton of notes on the novelization, not like some of the other novelizations we've covered, but there are some things in there that I think would deepen a bit. There was a lot more going on in Sisko's internal monologue, where throughout the book, he's numb because of what happened to Wolf 359, and he's been numb for 3 years. And the wormhole experience wakes him up and makes him not numb. And I'm not sure we really saw that. Even throughout the first half, he keeps seeing flashes of Jennifer because he's still haunted by it so much. Yeah. And his son knows that he's haunted, and his son really wants to go back to Earth, and it's seeing the change in his dad that his son's like, okay, let's stay here on Deep Space Nine. So it's... those may have been deleted scenes because I don't think the novelization was pulling them from nowhere.
Right.
But I love Avery Brooks, but I would have liked to have seen that character develop more strongly.
Yeah, I thought the trippy sequences were just so trippy, and maybe it is just a 90s thing. I thought once they got where they were going, I appreciated sent at the end. I sent him in at the end, and I was actually touched because I maybe just because Avery Brooks is a good actor, but Yeah, I once I got where it's going, but I agree with you, Jimmy. Every time I saw him in that fog or whatever, I was like, oh boy, we're back here. And then eventually they got somewhere. Eventually once you realize, this other race that didn't understand. Once we got far enough down the line, I enjoyed it. It was really fog behind him, not in front of him, and it felt like it got a little slightly distorted, or maybe that was just my eyes. But
So I wonder if that didn't occur to me until you were talking about it. Maybe that was them referencing where he always is, which is that day when we saw at the end on the ship with the accident and the smoke there. So that would have been really cool if they'd maybe done a resolve there.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because that's when they made that point.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I got those layers the other times I got or had watched it. I don't know if I've been.
Yeah, I'm not sure I did either.
First of all, I'm curious. Well, you seem a little harder on the show than I would have imagined, because I enjoyed this episode. I remember season 1 being okay. It was fine, really. I mean, good enough that I wanted to keep watching. But I think maybe you're thinking too far ahead of like the really.
I think it's a combination of thinking ahead to how good this show gets, and it does get really good, and also the fact that we're watching some of the best of Next Gen, and then we're jumping to this. I think probably influences my view as well, because there's just so much good Trek that came before this, and because we just recently watched all of it the last few years, it's hard to set that aside, whereas maybe it was a little more in its own thing when I originally sat down in college and watched it all. I will say this was the first Star Trek created not by Gene Roddenberry, which you can tell immediately because he always wanted everybody to get along, and nobody gets along in this. It was created by Rick Berman, who took over the Star Trek franchise after Roddenberry stepped down, and Michael Piller, who we've talked about because he was a producer on Next Gen. And Michael Piller wrote the screenplay based on the idea he and Rick Berman came up with. So it was very much they're controlling this thing, instead of DC Fontana and Gene, who kicked off Next Gen. And it was directed by David Carson, who directed 4 episodes of Next Gen, including Yesterday's Enterprise, and will direct 4 episodes of DS9, starting with the pilot. And then we'll direct the movie Star Trek Generations. So it was very much like, we're going to keep it with our people that we like. I did think the opening scroll was interesting, just to remind us of Next Gen, and also taking us back to one of the most pivotal moments of Next Gen's jumping off point was cool.
I mean, as somebody who obviously didn't watch this pilot then, if I had, I would have been. There's a good chance I would have been like, yeah. I mean, obviously we watched that battle, but.
Oh, you're talking about the exposition.
But it's been 3 years ago.
Yeah, you need that setup.
The text at the beginning. This is like I want to say almost not Star Wars style, but you know what I'm saying, like for the benefit of the audience at home. It's they're doing the recap text, like previously a little paragraph. Here's this battle that took place, and Picard was doing this, and here's what you need to know, and then.
But I like the opening scene with the whole Wolf 359 felt. I think it was just the editing, but it felt badly acted and over the top and ridiculous. The way it was cut together just did not feel good to me, but the idea of it, let's get into the minds of these people, because we saw Picard decimate these starships, let's get into the minds of one of them and see it, is such a cool idea. And what a great access point. And also, and there's a number of other notes I have that support this, but you're trying to get people interested in your new Star Trek show, and the first thing you do is say, hey, remember those guys you love that you watch every week? They're awful. We'll start with our lead character hating Picard, and we want you to get on board, which is such a bold move. I can't see. I mean, let's say if Cheers was doing a spinoff, and the first episode was like, "Yep, this lead hates Ted Danson. Let's follow him somewhere."
It would be the sports bar that they always competed with. Which actually that might work, but you know what? That should be my 100th episode.
Interesting.
That's it. Sorry, I'm keeping that idea for myself. But anyway, that's actually a perfect analogy. And I because to your point, Jimmy, when we get to that first scene, I'm like, I'm kind of. I immediately was like, I'm with the Cisco guy, and I was like, okay, you know what? I get where Picard's coming from too a little bit, but I could definitely relate to where Cisco's coming from.
I will say, and this is, I guess, my first fashion note. I've got a few, but that Cisco, Avery Brooks really wanted to shave his head because his previous roles he had a shaved head. That's why he was famous. And he really wanted to keep the shaved head, and they said, no, we can't have 2 bald captains in a row, and they made him grow. And he is such an excellent actor, but his look is not good in this first couple of seasons. Eventually they let him shave his head and grow the goatee, and then he looks cool as heck. But right now, it's like, man, you're acting from a bad hairstyle.
I didn't find out till today as we were watching. As I looked up Avery Brooks' acting career, that he was Hawk on Spencer for Hire.
He sure was.
And we thought he was the coolest character. He was like the muscle, but he was also, he had like this code of ethics and all this stuff. So he wasn't just a mercenary and all this stuff. And he was like, no, Spencer's cool. But this guy's really cool, and he was always great on it. And then so much so they did a spinoff, which
A Man Called Hawk. Yeah,
A Man Called
only
Hawk,
lasted 13 episodes.
Yeah.
He actually doesn't have a ton of acting credits. Avery Brooks on IMDb, he only has 22 acting credits.
Yeah.
Also in
That's kind of an only.
American History X, the big hit, 15 Minutes. This is the role he's best known for because he played it for 173 episodes, which was not nearly as much as Hawk. I think he played Hawk for about 80, if you count the TV movies, 82 or something. But I think you will, in a couple of seasons, think, God, this is the coolest Star Trek captain we've ever had. Yeah. So that coolness factor will come in. I'm just.
That's a big mountain to climb for me. But
no, he's.
But all that said, I like him so far.
Sisko's my favorite captain, and he's not even a captain yet. He's just a commander in these early seasons, which is. Spoiler! Spoiler! He'll eventually get promoted to captain. But
just like the aliens we're going to talk about in a bit.
But yeah, he's a commander in this, so he's a lower rank. I will say in the Wolf 359 sequence, I got excited that the Vulcan captain that we see was played by J.G. Hertzler, who will play Martok in 25 episodes of Deep Space Nine from seasons 4 through 7. So you'll get to see that character a lot. I did not realize he was in the pilot until today, so that's very exciting to me.
J.G. Hertzler also sold me my house. He sounds like a realtor.
J.G. Hertzler is best known for Deep Space Nine. Yeah. He'll play a couple other characters before Martok, actually, as well as the 90s Zorro and Bioshock.
Okay.
Injustice Gods Among Us. Yeah. Bioshock, the video game, he played Dr. Grossman Splicers.
Who's he in Injustice?
He plays Deathstroke. So, yeah, I like J.G. Hertzler a lot. Martok is one of my favorite reoccurring characters, so I look forward very much to seeing character come out. I don't think we ever see this Vulcan captain again, but we'll see him again.
He is not in the X-rated version of Deathstroke.
So you made me think of something that I would have wanted to put in the first impressions thing, because you mentioned the acting, and that did, especially in the I'd say the first half, the first episode, I guess. Was really striking me as wooden and stilted in places, where it was just like,
I need to tell you something.
And it seemed like there was almost a dramatic jump and improvement in the second half somewhere
and
to me.
Like,
I thought it was the editing, honestly.
No, I'm talking about the line reads.
I have thoughts on from the top, but also Felicia Bell played his wife Jennifer, and at the top I felt. Well, I can't say the top because she didn't have any lines at the top. But when we first go into those dream sequences, I'm like, man, that's really wooden. And then I'm like, oh, that's why it's wooden. It's an alien pretending to be. I shouldn't say alien. It's a race that doesn't, or a species that doesn't understand how humans talk.
Kinda. I guess. I mean, I hadn't thought about that.
Although Ty Cobb had no problem saying aggressive and whatever.
So Jennifer,
that's how racist Ty Cobb was. That transcended to a species on the other side of the galaxy.
Felicia Bell only has 19 acting credits. This is what she's best known for. She'll play Jennifer Sisko in 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine, so this won't be the last time we see her. But she also General Hospital. She did 7 episodes. She was in an episode of Smallville, and best known for Nightman. Whatever that is.
And that's for
Nightman.
22 episodes of Nightman.
Not sure I guess it would be Dayman is when they're doing
that's
the
right. You're right. Yeah.
Enemy of Nightman.
She looks and she for those keeping up with newer Trek stuff or newer sci-fi. She reminded me of Tawny Newsome right off the bat. Yeah, who from Lower Decks and also Space
Tawny would
Force.
have probably been too young at this point to play that character.
Very much too young. Yeah, and a very different kind of actress. I know she does more comedy and stuff, but.
Do you think we had so many extreme close-ups in that opening sequence so we didn't realize they were reusing Enterprise sets?
Yeah, I thought I liked that they jumped right in. The effects, as we noted, were not good. It felt like a Sci-Fi Channel set of effects from that era,
masterpiece.
Which I look at in a bad way, but also in a very nostalgic good way.
It felt like the special effects the Sci-Fi Channel had 15 years later.
Well, maybe.
But I thought they still had some good shots in that nonetheless. But yeah, I'm with you, Jimmy. I like that it jumped right in, but it felt it was past the tension. The one thing I did like, and that obviously that leads to the heart of the episode, was when I think it's Cisco says it. Oh, hey, get the civilians to the escape pods, and I like that reminder of, hey, by the way, this is the 24th century. There are civilians on the ship.
So we get through that, and we get a holodeck scene, which reminded me of the Next Gen pilot, because Wesley was in a brook, and now Jake's sitting on a dock. There are a number of things that were in the Next Gen pilot. In the book, they mentioned that Jake has been reading Huckleberry Finn and is into Mark Twain, and so so Cisco calls Jake Huckleberry a couple of times, which they didn't do in the show, but I was like, that's really funny considering we just had the Next Gen episodes with Mark Twain.
All right, that makes more sense, because now I can cross out my next question, which was, we haven't had any advances in fishing in the 24th century.
Yeah. But did you notice
abolishing it?
Did you notice the holodeck walls look different than they do on the Enterprise D?
I did not.
There was like detail in between the yellow grid lines.
No.
I think that was to distinguish this is a different ship.
Interesting.
So I enjoyed that. Then they get to Deep Space Nine, and O'Brien's just there. In the book is mainly told from Cisco and O'Brien's perspective, which I don't think you get that from the episode because O'Brien doesn't have a ton of perspective in the episode, but they go into a whole big deal where part of the reason he took this job is he was a non-commissioned officer, even though he'd been wearing a lieutenant junior grade pips, and now they've promoted him to ensign, and he's Ensign O'Brien, which I don't think anybody ever calls him ensign in the show. They just call him chief because he's the chief engineer and he was the transporter chief. But I did notice he was wearing an ensign's pips. So I guess he's an ensign now, which is disappointing to me. He deserves better than that.
While we're talking about O'Brien, he has the goodbye scene with Picard. Is this Next Generation fan service?
Yeah.
And you know what? Again, I'm on board for it.
Yeah.
I appreciate
He deserved it. He deserved it. And the whole empty bridge, that was a little disappointing. Nobody else was on the bridge that we recognized. I know it was the night shift, but still.
we talked about that off mic, like, where is everybody else? But and then Picard's like, sends the transporter person out of the transporter room, number 3.
Well, that was April Grace playing the transporter operator, and she's an extra that's frequently in Next Gen.
Okay.
So she was a Next Gen.
All right. She looked familiar.
Yeah, she was a Next Gen person.
But then it made me think, and I think it's a fitting salute to him and all that stuff, and like, now allow me to do for you what you've done for me so many times.
Well, I love the Picard's like, I called down here yesterday and forgot you weren't here.
Which again ties into the whole thing of the episode, which is loss and moving on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want a rusty person running. Now I sound like McCoy.
Oh, running the transporter?
I want the best people. Who's the best person that does it?
It's a simple transport.
Oh, they'll be in at 4. Okay, I'll come back at 4.
So, the other thing that I'm disappointed was cut from the book, like I said, I don't have many notes in the book, but Keiko's in the book. And Keiko does not, it feels really weird that she's not in this episode.
I thought that too. I kept thinking
I don't know if the actress wasn't available. Yeah. She's only in 19 episodes of DS9. They offered her a lead part, and she turned it down. The story with her in the book is that she actually encouraged him to take this because she knew it would be a great career opportunity. But then when she gets on the station, she's like, but what am I supposed to do as a botanist on this dump? So they hint to what will eventually be her plot, that she'll become the teacher of the kids. But it's very much like her with 2-year-old Molly trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And the only real scenes we get, and the only one like from her perspective, is when the promenade's exploding in fire at the very end. She like loses track of Molly and she's trying to find her, and it's like a little hectic.
Yeah.
But that's her plot in the book. It's not a lot, but still knowing that she encouraged him, because otherwise he seems like a bad husband dragging her to this spot where she can't use her expertise at all. The broken, destroyed station is such a contrast to the bright, happy Enterprise.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about it screams, this is different. I want your thoughts on the ops. That's their version of the bridge. We didn't spend a ton of time there, but you notice the open elevator, which is slow. You notice the transporter pad. I don't think we ever see a transporter room. The transporter pad is in ops. And then Cisco has a glass door office, unlike Picard's closed door office.
Yeah, I thought it was weird, and then I felt like every time Kira, every time she moved around, especially in the whole fighting the Cardassian scene, to me it was like an MC Escher painting, like where I'm like,
there's a lot of stairs.
I thought she was going upstairs, and now she looks like she's going downstairs. I don't know what is going on here.
There's stairs because there's like upper platforms, and then there's the middle, and then there's pits on the side of the middle.
It's like
very layered.
She was just doing laps around so they can shoot her from different angles.
It's a dynamic set. It's interesting.
Yeah, but you know, it's not It's not what we see on our, and it
No.
shouldn't be. We're on a space
Well,
station.
and this
also,
isn't.
also Cardassian.
It's not a Federation.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
It's Cardassian,
That's
which
right.
gives it a whole different look. I mean, the muted tones and the darks and the grays and the angles are different.
And Kira lets us know for sure, just if you hadn't had enough exposition, she says, "This is not a starship, Major."
So let's talk about Major Kira Nerys briefly.
Yeah.
Played by Nana Visitor. She's best known for this role, of course. The movie Friday the 13th, the 2009 version.
Yeah.
Ted 2, The Resident.
Huh.
This will be especially, well, we're all Family Guy fans here. She's done several appearances on Family Guy.
Yep.
From 2009 to
Rita
2014.
and Mother,
Yeah.
mainly.
So
She was
because
a
I was
couple
like,
episodes
oh,
of
I know that
Torchwood
name,
Miracle
and
Day.
I know it from this, but I also was like, oh, Family Guy. I've seen that in the guests.
Her other big thing is there's a television show called Wildfire that ran about 15
Yeah, I don't
years
know
ago.
what that
She had
is.
51 episodes. I'd heard of it. I never watched it. I love her and that character so much. And immediately I felt she came out fully formed.
Yeah, I liked her right away, and then 5 seconds later, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. She's Ro, or she's."
Yeah.
That was the
What was
part
gonna
Michelle
be-
Forbes was
yeah,
going to have.
Michelle Forbes.
I do think as the series goes on, we definitely distinguish a difference. But that O'Brien comment to Cisco, have you worked with many Bajoran women?
Yes.
I mean, rose in your head immediately.
Yeah. That
And
might have been when it clicked
First
in.
of all, it's stereotyping. O'Brien's
Yes.
better than that, but
She also, and this might be a theme for our. How many seasons of this are there?
7.
She looks a lot like my first wife, and I mean in a good way. I mean, my first wife's an attractive woman, and so is Nana Visitor, and they have a certain amount of sass.
7 seasons. That was
yeah.
like the format
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah.
So
That's not a bad. That's a good.
Enterprise got cut off
Good
at
arc.
4. They weren't
Yeah.
very, which was disappointing to a lot of people. But they mentioned that the Federation's only here to help. This is a Bajoran station, and the Federation's going to handle the administration. Although I feel like the longer we go into the series, the more it's run like a Starfleet station, and you forget
Yeah.
the Bajorans run it.
Yeah.
But I really like Kira shooting back. Well, the Cardassians said the same thing 60 years ago. I know they're different, but from her perspective, you really understand this just feels like more people coming in and bossing her around.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Fairfield Inn is also a Marriott property. I think that's the way it works.
What?
I mean, they're not at all, but...
And they're not.
And I do think even by the end of this episode, she's coming around on the Starfleeters. But from that initial reaction, and God, she might be I love her so much.
It makes
the
her
whole
look-
main cast is excellent.
It makes you get behind her real easy, and
Yeah.
she's fun, and I'm enjoying her a lot already.
So we've met 3 of the leads so far. We've talked about O'Brien, of course,
Yep.
Cisco, and Kira. The next lead we meet is Odo, the security chief, who we find out just from a throwaway line that he has no idea what his origin is. He was just found in the asteroid belt years ago, and he's been living among the Bajorans, but he can't quite mimic their appearance. So that's the
Oh,
great...
'cause he's a shapeshifter,
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
he is. He can turn... His natural state is a bucket of liquid, and he has to return there every night.
So this is a Super Friends reference to the Wonder Twins.
So Odo is played by the great Rene Auberjonois.
Yeah.
And I was going to say he's one of my favorites too. I don't think there's a weak link in this main cast. If you were going to say a weak link, I would say either Sitting El-Fadl or Kira Clofton. I'm sorry. We'll talk about both of them in a second, Jake or Bashir. We'll talk about them in a second. But Rene Auberjonois is best known for this, but also the movie MASH, where he played Father John Mulcahy, and the show Boston Legal that he did with William Shatner.
yeah.
Right.
Plus the Mel Gibson movie The Patriot. He, and you'll appreciate this, Keith, only has 230 IMDb credits.
I was gonna say he has been in everything.
So many. Sadly, he passed away in 2019.
Yeah.
So he is no longer among us, which means any DS9 continuation would not include him, which bums me out. But he was still active up until then.
Yeah.
On Archer, he voiced Manfred in a couple episodes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love him so much. And again, you're playing this... There's a lot more aliens in this show than we're used to. And he's such an interesting character, I think.
What I've known him mostly from, first this was when I would have first started recognizing him, but then his voice was very distinctive and would show up in pretty much every animated series you would watch from this point onward.
Yeah.
And it's something interesting about him that I know, or about his voice for me, is that it's not one I get tired of in the sense of like, even though I can tell it's him like immediately, there are other people where you can do that. It's sort of like, maybe they shouldn't have cast the person for this sort of thing. I'm not going to name any names, not going to get there. But no, for him, every time he showed up in something, he was like, I like that voice. I like it for this character. It works.
So when we meet Odo, he's arresting Nog, played by Aaron Eisenberg. Aaron Eisenberg, best known for this role, not surprisingly, a one-off of Star Trek Voyager, a Star Trek computer game. He only got 27 credits, so he's mainly Star Trek guy. He is not a lead character, but he is in 47 episodes of the series, so basically 1 out of every 3.5 episodes. He will be in it a lot. Nog has one of the best arcs on this series. Of all the reoccurring characters, I think he'll be one of your favorites. The Ferengi lad, the youth.
Oh, okay.
He actually also recently passed away in 2019 at the age of 50.
I was going to say, that seems young.
50. Yeah, just like this.
Which is
He's really young.
Which is really, really sad because he and Carrick Lofton, who plays Jake Sisko, were doing a DS9 rewatch podcast, and they hadn't gotten very far into it. I think they were still in season 1, like the end of season 1 when he passed away. So it's sad for a lot of reasons. It's sad for a lot of reasons, but that's definitely part of it. I know the rest of the cast really liked him. There's a DS9 documentary we'll watch way down the road that came out a couple of years ago that was crowdfunded, where they pitched what season 8 would start with, and he was very much a part of that.
Oh, wow.
To spoil, because it never is going to happen anyway, he dies in the opening scene of the pitch, but his death kicks off the whole story, so I guess they could still do it.
Sure.
But it's also sad because I love Nog. But we find out he is the nephew of Quark, who is a lead character, played by Armin Shimmerman, best known for, you're not going to believe it, this role. He was also in Bioshock, The Hitcher, Ratchet and Clark. He has 210 IMDb credits. He played a Ferengi in Next Gen.
Oh,
Buffy.
right.
Oh, yeah, he was the principal on Buffy. I loved that.
Yeah.
That was a great role. Thank you for reminding me, because that didn't show up in his best known for, and it should have.
I know, it's just like, what the...
If you remember, he played a Ferengi in Next Generation, but it was a different Ferengi. He also reprises his role as Quark in the pilot of Voyager and the movie Star Trek Insurrection, which looks like it was a deleted scene. But he was in 4 episodes of Next Gen, including one as Quark that he hasn't done yet. We're going to see Quark in an episode of Next Gen.
My question...
He was the gift box face in that Lexana Troya Haven.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then he was 2 different Ferengi in 2 other episodes that we've already
My
seen.
question when Quark shows up is, where are the twins?
Oh, God. Go back and check our special episode of the sci-fi series, Quark, and don't watch that series.
Yes.
Wow.
You know what? If you want to see the twins, just Google Quark, the show, see the twins. I just saved you several hours.
Odo and Quark, as is hinted at in the beginning, they've already been playing cat and mouse for 4 years because they both were on the station during the Cardassian occupation, and their frenemy relationship is one of my favorite dynamics in the series that they'll keep coming back to and mining for good material.
That makes sense.
Obviously, I think there is some level of affection between them. I don't know if we quite see it yet, but they're different. I did want to mention, in the books, before Sisko arrives on the station, he has a dream of Bajor and Kayapaka. Which they cut from the show. I don't know if that would have... And they also mentioned that Kira has a dream of Sisko in the book.
Interesting.
Which would have really deepened all of that. I will say, in the book, they keep referring to them as the Bajora, as they did in that episode of Next Gen, but they never do in the series. Nog thinks Kira and Odo are Starfleet officers, which doesn't make any sense because he was on the station during the occupation, too.
But yeah, he's a kid and wouldn't necessarily know that some of those distinctions.
But he already knew Odo.
But they could have been drafted into the Starfleet from his perspective. The uniforms.
I will say this is... Like I said, I've got 3 more notes in the book, but one of the notes in the book... Odo, when they're talking about Odo, he's talking about what he doesn't know as people. He says, the one thing I know about my people is they believe very strongly in justice. It must be part of our racial memory.
In the book?
That's what it says, which was cracking me up because we will meet his people, and they have nothing to do with justice.
Wait.
So that could be a spoiler.
Hang on. Does this mean they're a race of beautiful blonde people?
No.
That don't like to wear clothes?
No. Sorry. Yes, that is his backstory. That's the planet he's from. No, I think it'll take a couple seasons to get to his people, but they... You know what?
Forget the Cheers idea we had earlier. That's what I need to develop. I need to develop the Justice show.
And then the last thing I'll say about the book before we move on is O'Brien also has bad dreams in the book, and he's reliving the incident with Captain Maxwell that we learned about in that flashback.
Oh, yeah.
And he even references the Cardassian and the bar scene with the conversation and all that. And I was disappointed we didn't get that because there's some moments where O'Brien and Kira are looking at each other and talking about Cardassians, where I'm like, it would really help to know O'Brien's backstory with the Cardassians. So that literally is all the notes I have for the book. Still got plenty more for the show. Did you notice the Enterprise D docked to Deep Space Nine, just how massive Deep Space Nine is?
Yeah.
No.
Like, the Enterprise is big, it holds 1,000 people, but it's so tiny up there on the
it looks
docking port.
small.
Yeah, DS9, when it's full, will hold thousands of people.
It seemed like they should have more than one connector. One.
They do.
Thing.
They
Oh,
have
was there more than one?
Well, there's 3 pylons on the top and 3
I meant
pylons on the bottom.
Going into the Enterprise.
Oh, no. No, it's just one.
Everyone's got it. I can imagine the
Yeah, since DS9 doesn't have a transporter room. It's just those couple pads and offs.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they may have a transporter room, but we never see it. Sisko's hostility in the first scene with Picard is so good. That's the scene where if you were underestimating Avery Brooks up till then, you're like, okay, these are 2 great actors going toe-to-toe. You feel it.
Yeah.
You feel it so strong.
I would say that his weakness so far in this episode in general would be when he has to do that swerve to happy.
Yeah.
And doing something like cheerful and bouncy, like that woo and stuff. And it's just when he's serious, he's there. Yeah, he's right there. But just
maybe that speaks to him having a hard time embracing happiness at this point in his life.
Just thinking ahead to the next 7 seasons, he gets way more opportunity to be serious than happy. So. But he does get to be happy from time to time. Yeah. Picard gives him a task. He is responsible for getting Bajor ready to become a member of the Federation, because Bajor is not in the Federation yet. That's a tall order. And I will say it does not happen in a season or 2. It's a long-running story.
Yeah.
It is still part of the show's structure going forward. It's just such a long way off. I don't know if you noticed this. Majel does appear in this episode as a computer voice, but there is another computer voice on the Cardassian station. So when they're using Starfleet stuff like the runabout or the pads, they talk with Magel's voice.
Nice.
When it's the Cardassian station talking, the voice is a different actress.
Majel Merritt.
No, it is Judy M. Durand, who you may know because we have seen her before.
Name sounds familiar.
She played Amory, keyboard player with all the arms that was flirting with Riker.
Yes.
Who I love.
Yes.
And my alternate episode is Amory should have had a residence at Quarks.
Because we loved her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see her as a residence at Quarks all the time on a reoccurring basis, but she does do as many episodes as Majel does of DS9. They both do about 50 episodes as just the voice.
Because I almost was going to ask that question, and it's been answered, which was, shouldn't there be other computer voices? And sure enough, there are.
Well, the Cardassian station, of course, isn't Majel.
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
So, yeah, I just thought that was cool. I had no idea it was her until I looked it up. Sisko tells Picard he's considering returning to Earth for civilian duty, which I'm not going to go back to it, but I mentioned in the book that's more of the story. But this is a man who is so... And I'm not sure the episode does as good a job of demonstrating this. So this is a really broken man who spent the last 3 years of his life since Wolf 359 working at Utopia Plananetia, which they mention. That's the shipyards on Mars where they build the starships, which is a dead-end job that nobody goes to for good. And this is kind of his last chance. They're putting him on this backwards station and trying to get him to reinvigorate himself. And he's sent to such an awful place that nobody else wants to go.
I would have liked to have seen a little bit of that.
Yeah.
That's what I think in more contemporary things, you would have seen that little bit of like a here I'm at a factory.
This would have been a 2 hour, not an hour and a half.
Yeah, and I thought Picard showed when he was like, well, why aren't you excited about this? I think even Picard, after Sisko answers, is like, yeah, I guess that's a good point. he even the great diplomat Picard couldn't come up with a good thing like, well, this will really build up your career. He was just like, okay.
I'll get back to you on that.
I got you. I understand where you're coming from.
Sisko tasks Quark with becoming the community leader. First of all, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Second of all, I really do feel like as the show goes on, Quark is the community leader of the Promenade. As unlikely a role as that may be.
It makes sense as a business leader and whatever, and he stayed. They even mentioned that.
But they blackmailed him into staying.
Oh,
Sisko blackmailed him into staying. Do you think... I mean, not to spoil, but Quark's going to be a lead character going like on the whole series.
Yeah.
But do you think that's a good start to blackmail this guy into staying?
I think, all right. From what I was seeing, I thought they did a pretty good job with those opening arcs for the characters establishing themselves and that sort of. Here's a little bit of what makes them a little bit the conflict in their arc is going to be, and they give you a little taste of how they're already redeeming themselves by the end of the episode. I think Quark was apparently like when you saw the place bustling.
Yeah.
You can already see that he probably would have wanted to do it anyway if he knew this was going to happen.
Well, and also,
but still, just the blackmail aspect, that seems like a sort of like, here's her Ferengi tactic, we're going to kind of understand each other in this sense. Odo even saying, I didn't realize I was going to like this guy this much.
Picard would have never done it, though.
Right, exactly.
That's one of the establishing things of Sisko is willing to cross lines Picard would never do. And right off the bat, to Keith's point, by the end of this episode, Quark would have been kicking himself for leaving because all of a sudden this is the most important station in the galaxy, and he runs the most important establishment on the promenade of the station. So, honestly, for as big as the station is, we really should see more of it. Then the show kind of makes it feel small. Like the promenade, we only ever see this one section with these handful of shops, but it should go all the way around. Right?
That's all that matters. You were talking about how big it is, and I've really thought about it.
We see a few other shops.
I wasn't watching the establishing shot at all for the docking.
Yeah.
But for the size it is, I mean, there must be, how many, did they ever talk about how many other shops we never even see, or if there's other
Yeah, we hear about other shops. I mean, obviously there's the Bajoran Temple on the promenade as well. That's where the Vedic was coming out of. So there is a church, basically, on the promenade. Quark's Bar, and then a few other like restaurants and stuff.
So the promenade, how big is that supposed to be? As far as
I think it's supposed to be pretty big, but it's only ever portrayed as not that big.
Okay.
It's
well, I mean, is that
you can't afford to build it.
It's like an outlet mall of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to. Are you saying is that
with a hotel attached?
Is that all of the shops, the promenade, or is
Yeah.
it just okay? So it's not just like the food court or something.
No, it's 2 levels because I don't know if there's the balcony that circles the whole thing up above it. So it's 2 levels, and you can't enter from both levels. Like you can enter Quark's on the top or the bottom. It's a 2-story. We'll see more as we go on that he has holodecks upstairs.
Okay.
So it's a 2-story establishment.
This makes sense with what I realize. Hotel casino is more accurate. It's a hotel casino. That also has all these shops.
I mean,
so it's every hotel casino in Vegas, which.
Well, the hotel's separate because the hotel's run by Starfleet.
I love the feel of those, by the way. I mean,
when holodecks, when we get there, and we're working on it here.
Yeah.
Vegas will be ahead of everybody with them, so it makes total sense.
Yes, so the hotel part is run by Starfleet, basically, so it's like free. And then you have to pay to go gamble and drink at Quark's and see the holodecks.
Just like Vegas was a stopover for the Army guy for for the mob. For the mob. But
Jimmy,
also
edit that out, please.
No, Mob Keith is. You can find him at 367 Oak Lane.
I think it was for the Army. Maybe it was a bunch of the armed service, but I know it was a stopover for the Army on the way. Maybe it was Navy out west, but anyway.
Well, the reason Quark wants to leave, and he mentions the Bajoran government's going to collapse in a second anyway, and Kira backs him up on that. She's like, "Yeah, they'll be gone in a week, and then it's going to be civil war, which seems all but certain." And I will say that's an ongoing arc in this first season: is the planet going to fall into civil war or not? But I think it's hard to tell. You really only get the glimpse of where Kayapaka is on the surface, but this planet has been decimated. It has been strip mined of all its minerals. The only reason the Cardassians are leaving is because there's nothing of value left. DS9 is a mining station that they process the minerals through. That's what it was built for. So it's really just kind of it's such a crap hole. We meet Kayapaka, who is played by Camille Saviola.
Yeah.
She is unfortunately no longer with us as well. Died in 2021, just a few months ago.
So she's the reclusive.
She's the Pope, essentially, of the Bajoran people. She's best known for Addams Family Values, The Purple Rose of Cairo, this role, The Heights. She has 46 IMDb credits.
Yeah, I say this
She was Turtle's mom on Entourage.
Oh, I saw the Entourage credit. I didn't know what it was. That makes sense because she was in 3. I know he's canceled, but she was in 3 Woody Allen movies. You mentioned Purple Rose of Cairo.
I love Purple Rose of Cairo.
Fantastic. She was also in Broadway Danny Rose.
That was her second credit. Yeah,
her second credit.
Those were her first things.
And then later she was in Shadows and Fog. So I think she's a classic New York actress, which kind of comes across to me in the in the episode.
Well, as I'm sure you can imagine, she is a reoccurring character. I'm not going to tell you how many episodes she's in because
you.
I feel like that would spoil her story to a certain extent.
Now you finally do this for the first
like
web.
There's Kayapaka.
Yeah,
I love her, and even though she's in the number of episodes she's in, which is not 47, it's a much smaller number. I will say she holds a very important place in DS9 as like. She's the religious leader of the whole planet. And the religion of the planet is very much a central theme in all 7 seasons. So getting to learn all the stuff they set up with her where she's talking about the Pa, which is like your soul or your aura, and the prophets, not like the Ferengi prophets. and naming...
Referring to a joke I made during the actual watching of the episode.
It's so well developed and so cool to learn about these people and their religion.
She's the S of DS9.
People.
Well, it's something we talked about.
Space.
Yeah. No, but she's the heart of DS9, so she's the S in DS9.
It helps explain why you like this series so much, and something we've talked about through the entire life of this podcast, which is in the TOS for sure, and TNG also, to an extent, is like so many side characters. Like, I want to know more about this person or that person. Like, even like Harry Mudd, who obviously is getting new life down in Discovery, and some other
only in
TOS
season 1 of
guys
Discovery. We haven't seen him.
Yeah. But we got more of it, and now we're getting Chris Pike, and actually we're getting more Chapel than ever.
I love
awesome.
Mabenga.
Yeah, Mabenga, which I have some thoughts on that.
Transportive Kyle.
For
no more names. No more names.
I'll save them for 2045 when we get to there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love that we are getting that much about these other characters so far. So.
Yeah, that like I said, DS9 ends up having like 50 recurring characters of significance.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny. My first note is about Pa, because my thought was I might be misremembering this.
It rhymes with Ga, which stands for Klingon.
This is about your Pa and how much you like Star Trek.
I might be misremembering this from some religion class or another, but I think it's Egyptian, Ka and Ba. I think that's what there might be something like the soul and the path or something like that.
Ka is definitely Egyptian.
Did you like Kayapaka's secret door underneath the fountain?
I love that. I made a note of that. A fountain that turns into a stairway. I thought, and I liked Sisko's reaction. Like, okay,
they don't even mention it. They just go down.
Yeah,
but that's why she managed to hang on to one of the orbs when the Cardassians took the other 8.
I thought that was slick.
Well, and I really enjoy the balance here of. They have a religion. They call the orbs the Tears of the Prophet. They call the wormhole the Celestial Temple, and these are their prophets that live in it. From Starfleet's perspective, these are orbs. These are aliens. Yeah. These are, and it's I'm always ready to deconstruct religion and look at it from a historical and scientific perspective. And it's so cool that Deep Space Nine strikes that balance of I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but there are times where Kira's like, because she's a very religious character. She's like, you believe they're aliens, I believe the prophets. We don't know which one of us is right. Maybe we're both right. There's room in the universe for both. And I like that a lot.
Well, I think what they understand is that it's a matter of perspective. I was looking at you.
And then we end the podcast right
now. Speaking of orbs, and this is one of my many fashion notes. I'm going to call it alien, but really it's who's to say what's alien in here? Alien underboob in this episode.
That's true. Is that one of your fashion notes?
Yeah, and I'm a fan of underboob. I'll say it. And I think Bill, again, this is one of those real Bill Teese is like, how come I couldn't do that? Probably because they wouldn't have let him, but they got it in there. It was just and I think that's another thing is like, yes, we had Bill Teese on TOS, and yeah, we have Deanna Troi in all kinds of revealing outfits, but yeah, right off the bat, we're going to tell you, you're at a strip bar. You're at a strip bar on this, more or less on this.
On the strip bar.
This station, yeah.
I was going to. Yeah, I need to point out to everyone that I was just sort of like already just hopping onto the trolley when he said orbs. And I was like, I can't quite see the destination. I think I know what it is. I can't. Got to wipe off. There it is. Yep, that's where we're going.
Yeah.
So, while we're on fashion, let's talk about the new uniforms. They're like next gen, but the colors are reversed, where the color's the top and the black's the bottom. And then they also have very loose collars, so they look less buttoned up and professional.
Yeah,
with the purple dickies underneath.
I love, this is not surprising, I really like Kira's uniform.
You like the Bajoran?
With the...
And Odo wears the brown version.
Yeah, interior,
So that is Bajoran nationality military.
That's the
or something, or
Bajoran
what?
outfit, yeah. Which looks a lot like the monochrome jumpsuits the kids wore around, except better constructed.
Yeah.
And Jake wore one of those, slightly better, but not much.
Hers looked better. But just to go even more back into the Bajoran row and all that stuff, I wrote down, because somebody's like, man, it's really hot here. And I'm like, how about you guys bust out the short sleeves? 2 scenes later, Kira is in a short sleeve outfit. And then I realized,
she just took off the top like Picard does.
Because I wrote down, why aren't there short sleeve Starfleet uniforms? Then I wrote that, and then we saw Kira, and then I was like, wait a minute, Ro was showing off the guns in Ensign Ro, the Ensign Ro episode.
Well, and you may notice that O'Brien almost always has his sleeves rolled up in this series. So you'll see that he makes it short sleeve without making it. Yeah.
Interesting.
I just like the jumpsuits. I will say, Next Gen does not switch their uniforms to match immediately.
Okay.
But in the first film, they'll switch to the DS9 version, and Voyager will have the DS9 uniforms. But then in Next Gen's second film, they get brand new uniforms that are different than this, and DS9 makes that change in conjunction because they're like same time period. So when Next Gen in the films get better, DS9 gets it. But Voyager doesn't because they're 70,000 years away and they're not in communication with Starfleet. So they have to Voyager keeps these uniforms the whole series.
Awesome.
That makes total sense.
I love little things like that when that works.
It's cool. Cisco meets his wife in the temple, and I love that he mentions here his father is a gourmet chef because his father is a reoccurring character we will get to know, and we will see that he is a chef in New Orleans.
Forgot about that.
So I'm excited to meet Joseph Sisko.
All right.
His paw, so to speak.
Kayapaka tells Sisko to find the temple. Wonder if he's going to do that.
Eventually, that's a series arc.
Then we go into Quark's, and I love this scene. I feel like DS9 does it better, but it's the version of the heist movie condensed to one scene where they have Odo as the bag, and Quark's totally in on it. Like he would put up more of a fight if they were closing his bar without this.
Yeah.
But they've now got Quark doing their scheme for them, and Brian and Kira are playing along.
He's a community leader.
I love it. And in that episode, we will see Mark Allen Shepard as Morn, and then he appears a whole bunch more throughout that episode. I pointed out every time I saw Morn. I was like, Morn! He has no lines, and he's not even credited for this episode in IMDb. So IMDb has him listed for 93 episodes, but they don't have this as one of them.
Wow.
But as I mentioned to Steven off the air, Morn never speaks, but the continuity is that he speaks a lot. We just never see it on screen.
Funny.
And he is a Lorian, and the name Morn is obviously a rearranged of the letters Norm, and he's based on Norm from Cheers.
No.
That he always sits on the bar stool.
Are you?
No, I'm serious.
Yeah,
that's why he's always singing the bar stool. He also will do one episode of Next Gen and one episode of Voyager as Morn, just as like background character credit. So we'll see him in those shows.
Right,
but I love Morn. Every time I see him, I get excited.
So you might want to leave some space here to edit, or leave this part here if you want the audience to just turn this off sooner. But I'm just going to point out that Odo's role in the heist was as the bagman. Yes.
We also
and credits. No.
We also saw in that scene where they're doing the bag, the Ferengi pit boss, who probably didn't register you because he was just the one that like handed over the gold, played by Max Grodinchik, who you likely said, "Oh, that Ferengi looks familiar," because he played a Ferengi on Next Gen before. He was in the episode where Picard meets Vash. He was the Ferengi that bothered her. He also was
same character.
No. He was also in The Perfect Mate as the Ferengi that tried to get with Famke Janssen. Two different Ferengis. Like I said, in this episode, he's only credited as Pit Boss, but what he actually, the name of that character is Rom, who we will find out in a upcoming episode, but he is Nog's father.
Okay.
He is in 37 episodes of DS9. So we'll get to know Rom. I think he has a great arc. I just think it's so interesting in this episode they didn't even credit him as Nog's father. He's just the pit boss. So maybe they hadn't figured that out yet. In the book, there is a scene... I forgot. I did have another book thing. In the book, there is a scene where
a note for
Jake and Nog become friends, which is... Their friendship is a major part of DS9 in these early seasons especially. And there's like 11... young adult chapter books with Jake and Nog as friends. But in the book, Jake and Nog are having trouble connecting, and Nog like shoplifts in front of Jake and gets Jake in trouble, and then Jake helps Nog save his father when the stuff's going on in the promenade. So that earns him his friendship immediately.
Oh, wow.
So they must have known this character was going to be Nog's father, but they didn't establish it on screen in this episode.
I remember liking that relationship well enough.
Jake and Nog, or Nog and Rom?
Yeah, Jake and Nog. I mean, it was not something that would...
They're the Rosolian Isles of the Star Trek world.
It's not something I would expect to annoy me. It didn't annoy me as much as I would expect.
It was also the original title of Jake and the Fat Man, was Jake and the Nog.
Max Grodinchek is not best known for Deep Space Nine. He's best known for The Rocketeer, the 1995 movie Rumpelstiltskin, where he played Rumpelstiltskin, Rising Sun, and Barton Fink, according to IMDb.
Interesting.
He has 45 credits on IMDb, so he's been around. He is still among us. In fact, he and some of the other actors will go to conventions without their makeup and do like the singing act and stuff.
You kept him waiting this entire time?
No. No, we don't have Max Grodinchek sitting in my basement. That would be funny.
Well, no, he'd be upstairs just like talking to Zoe right now. We're like, sorry, Max, come on.
So we have... we're going through the lead characters, but we haven't talked about Jake Sisko, who's played by Cyril Lofton. There's a younger actor that plays him the 3 years previously, because I guess kids grow fast.
Yeah.
But Cyril Lofton's best known for this role, the movie Beethoven, where he played skateboarder number 1.
Wow.
He has 22 acting credits. So, yeah, other than this role, he didn't do a lot. But Jake Sisko is a lead character. He's in most of... I mean, he's a lead character for all DS9. He's in most episodes.
Okay.
He is credit only sometimes, but he's in most episodes.
So at some point, the actor's going to change?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, he's just not in that many episodes.
In the Wolf 359, he was a different actor.
Oh, right.
We're not going to worry about who that was, because it doesn't matter. But, no, that actor...
I thought you were saying it was some kind of Bewitched Darren situation.
Actually... I'm not going to give it away, but there is an episode where we see Jake as a grown-up, and he's played by Tony Todd.
Well, it's already given away, isn't it?
No, because I'm not giving you any of the circumstances around it. But no, Cyril Lofton plays him. He is not an annoying child actor.
No.
I already liked him.
Yeah.
Do I dare say I like him better than Wesley Crusher? I don't know. It's hard.
Well, it's yeah. I mean,
Very different characters.
yeah, very different circumstances and characters and things they're
Yeah.
trying to do with him. I was a little irked, but it was, I think it was for a purpose in the sense of like, here, uptown Jake coming into the country and like, what
Yep.
we have to rough it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But he adjusted well enough, and that was fine. It needed to be said by someone. It was said. So
We got a little bit in this episode, but Jake and Ben Sisko's relationship is also hailed as one of the best things to come out of this series. I've read plenty of articles that cite this as like one of the first portrayals of a single African-American father raising a child
And he makes that
and being
point.
a good dad.
He makes that point, maybe in the Picard talk, where he's like, I'm a single dad, man.
I mean, his race doesn't come up.
Right,
race
right.
rarely comes up in Deep
Right,
Space Nine because
right.
it is the 24th century. But
Unless you're a Ferengi. No, I'm kidding.
But Ben
or a Bajoran. Or a Cardassian.
yes,
as we'll see as the series goes on, Ben Sisko is a very good father to Jake.
Yeah.
And they have such an interesting relationship. And I don't know, I really like
but I kept getting it's just so informal calling him Ben. I was so like, who?
Commander Sisko.
or I think I've heard of him as maybe Benjamin. Might have heard of Benjamin before. It's like, who's Ben Sisko?
Jennifer calls him Ben in the...
No, I guess she kind of earned it, maybe.
The lead characters we've met so far are Commander Sisko and Jake, Odo, O'Brien, Quark, Major Kira. At 35 minutes into the episode, and we are more than halfway through this podcast, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I know it's running long. We meet the last two main characters, Lieutenant Dax and Dr. Bashir. Lieutenant Dax is played by Terry Farrell, best known for this as well as Becker, Back to School, and Hellraiser 3.
And Lollapalooza.
She only has 36 credits. I'm surprised
Thank you,
about that. Yeah, I love Terry Farrell. I love Dax. Once she entered, she actually was really active in the story.
Yeah, and it's cool, the trill, there's a trill, but it's also the classic trope of an old man inside a young woman, which, I mean, come on.
That's a.
I believe Jadzia Dax is her, like, 7th, 8th, 9th host.
Okay.
We get to meet
It's
them all at some point.
There. Yeah, there.
There.
Oh, so
Yeah.
while we're here, and maybe this was... I felt like, didn't they do flashbacks? I mean, I feel like Cisco's the entire time, especially when he's tripping out, but she had they had a flashback to their surgery.
Dax goes by she.
Yeah.
She is a she. Okay.
Jadzia Dax goes by she.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
yes.
before you were saying she for like her 8th or 9th, and I was like, I thought that would be referring to the Trill host.
The
No,
Trill-
would be they, or it, or what are they?
But they're
what
a
is that?
singular organism, and
Right.
she wants to refer
Yes.
to. She doesn't like when you refer to the Trill separately.
Right, but I'm saying.
Because Jadzia Dax is a singular organism.
So,
But you were referred to the Trill separately. Is what
Yes, I
doing.
was.
yeah, that would be her memory of having the Trill put in her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Jadzia Dax action figure came with the Trill separately. I don't know
No.
why. I don't know why, because you couldn't put it in the action figure. It was
Well,
just
they
like
didn't
an
have the flap?
accessory. No, it was just an accessory.
The kangaroo pouch for you to.
They put a creature in her body.
I do enjoy. Yeah, no Chekhov.
That was a weird. It's weird every time with the Trill, but you know.
I realize that even as I'm about to ask these questions, it was probably more for the purpose of exposition. They're really hammering it home for you. Hey, we used to be friends, and I know you're an old man.
Yeah.
That kind of thing for the audience. But wasn't that like a faux pas? The way Cisco was treating her, as far as like.
So the Trill rules we know about is you're not supposed to have continued contact beyond lifetimes. I think the way they're getting around this is, well, she's a Starfleet officer that was assigned to this station, so they're going to have to. You can't renew a romantic relationship, but I guess a friendship's a little bit different.
But the way he was ribbing her about
Right.
like old
Yeah.
man and ha ha ha.
He
like
calls
that,
her-
That feels like.
He calls her old man the entire run of the character.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's just
All right.
because he was friends with Curzon, the previous host at Utopia Planitia. He was stationed with Cisco.
Okay.
And then Curzon was very old, as you could see in the flashback, and died, and they
Yeah.
passed the... Now, like I said, we will get to meet all the past hosts in a really cool Season 1 episode. I think it's Season 1. Maybe it's Season 2. But the novels and stuff have... Not the novel I'm talking about today, but other novels have explored different hosts. I just read a novella, like a 90-page novella that was set just after the motion picture, before Athacon, with Spock and Chapel on a shuttlecraft, and they were transporting Audrid Dax with them.
Huh.
A previous host who we'll see later. So the Dax, not the same Dax in Star Trek 6, though, that had the boots. Because that was clearly not a Trill. That was clearly a different alien.
Yeah.
But the Dax character they like to thread in the novels in past Star Trek history. Which seems a little forced to me, but whatever.
I mean, if you, yeah, I mean, why? It feels like a waste of a character if you don't do things like that. To like throw the fans a bone every now and then. Like, here, look at this. We know that, you know.
To circle back around, I did like that device of seeing her. And at that point, I thought, I was like, oh, everyone's gonna have a flashback. Then I realized later, I was like, nope.
She was just looking at the orb.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
But I thought I still thought that was a good device. I thought it was.
The only thing that bothered me about her introduction is Cisco looks at her body and whistles. And he's like,
oh my God, I missed that.
as they're like walking in.
Oh, no.
He's like, oh, this new body is kind of different. And he whistles at her. And in the.
I get it, though.
And I did
Is
not.
it possible the
ribbing
previous
thing, but I mean-
host was a perv?
Probably.
I say
possible.
in the pejorative sense.
This
I'm
is
sure
not
they probably had that kind of relationship where it would
That's
have been
what I was gonna say.
yeah.
This is not a note I wrote down, but in the novelization of this episode, Dax looks at Cisco, and we get one scene from her perspective, and she says, he's actually very attractive, but I can get past that and just work with him on a professional relationship. Like, that would have been weird if they went there. They don't ever go there.
I guess it's the stuff we talked about in the first Trill episode. That same kind of stuff. Yeah.
So then the other lead character, Dr. Bashir, played by, he's credited in this episode as Sitting El Fadl. Midway through this series, he'll change his name to Alexander Sitting, and that's what he goes by these days. He made his last name his first name his last name. And
I think he and Nana Visitor were married for a little while.
I don't know if they were married, but they have a child.
They
so
do, yeah.
when Major Kira's pregnant on the show, there's a scene.
Spoiler alert.
There's a scene where the Dr. Bashir puts the baby inside Major Kira because it's not her pregnancy, and Kira is like, "You did this to me," to Dr. Bashir and stuff, and it's really funny. So Alexander Siddig, that's the way I'll refer to him going forward, even though that wasn't his name at the time. Best known for Kingdom of Heaven, Reign of Fire, Doomsday. You may remember him from Game of Thrones. He recently did a voice on Star Wars: The Bad Batch, the Prince of Dorne. Yeah, Gotham. He played Ra's al Ghul.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, he was in Peaky Blinders. He had Doran Martell, the Prince of Dorne. He was in Da Vinci's Demons.
Oh, one of the Martells.
The Prince.
I don't know any of
Primeval.
those people. Oh, well, except for Caglisi.
24.
Khaleesi,
Yeah.
who played Kira in Solo, a Star Wars story. which is another instance
yes.
of Star Wars ripping off.
So that's Alexander Siddig. I think he is the most annoying of the leads, but I do think he becomes less annoying over time. I found him pretty annoying right here.
I agree, because I thought he was supposed to be green or whatever, and I was just like, yeah, I'm with everyone else. Like, what are you talking about, buddy?
Well, he is green. He's like, oh, this is so exciting. My sick bay's torn up, and this is the frontier. This is the wilderness. And Kira's like, dude, you're in my house.
Yeah.
And then he's like super flirty with Dax, and she's just like, sure, I'll get a drink with you. Like, there's never any romance between them, but I think the whole first season he's trying to get with her.
So it's like Boyle with Rosa.
Yeah, at first,
D9.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry if you think that's a spoiler that they never get together, but she's better than that. So.
Oh, Boyle and Rosa? Yeah.
No, I was talking about... But yeah, Boyle and Rosa.
You get a little bit of the, here's what's wrong with them, here's a little taste of what they can do differently to redeem themselves. And we got like a very brief bit of that with Odo being able to see, like, oh yeah, he's this...
Oh yeah, very end.
Yeah, but he's actually a competent doctor if he's actually in... I'm serious. Give me... I'm going to save a life right now.
We needed... It was such a brief scene, but we needed that from Bashir, because otherwise he was awful in this episode.
Yeah, at that point it made him like, okay, he is good at what he does. But yeah.
I like his character eventually.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, he was the one that grated on me. Yeah. He was the Wesley Crusher, for what many people say.
Yeah. I just remember liking him, I guess, overall. So, something.
I mean, he's a prodigy. He's a genius. And I guess we always rub against the geniuses like Wesley the wrong way sometimes.
All these word choices.
Yeah.
These phrases.
That's why we have such fervent anti-Reddit pages about us.
Oh.
The geniuses, they go after you.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to say fervent anti-rubbing laws.
Oh, with those two.
So at this point, Gul Dukat enters the story.
Yes.
Played by Mark Alamo.
Oh, yeah.
We already saw him in Next Gen as another Cardassian, Gul Massat, who is mentioned in the novelization, but not seen. He had the weird facial hair. He also played Frederick LaRoque in Time's Arrow that we recently watched. He was one of the, party goers at Guinan's party back in time.
Yeah.
He had a couple other roles on Next Gen, but this is what he's best known for. He'll be in 35 episodes of DS9 all the way up until the series finale. He will be the main antagonist for the series. And I think he's excellent at it. Even from this first appearance, I'm like, he's
him.
appropriately sleazy.
I think he's smart and competent and funny and all the things you want in a villain.
Exactly.
Without even, and I don't even think he
and he's in several times a season.
He does occasionally lean into it and stuff, the aspects, but I don't think he still seems like he's doing his job, but he's having a little bit of fun.
That's my favorite kind of villain. I thought his makeup looked amazing. I don't know if if they were doing something different with him, or it's just his natural body type or something, but the neck and the cords all the way down, it just looks so taut and just serpentine, just kind of like a straining kind of.
I thought the same thing, and I was like, man, he's doing a really good job of acting in something that looks really uncomfortable. I thought that too, all the next stuff, because I thought in a weird way they made his neck look thinner somehow with the makeup.
Because of the perspective. And but it really worked for this kind of you can see this whipcord tension in him, but he made it seem so effortless at the same time. It conveyed that
I went through that whole thought process of, man, I wonder if he's in pain or just I sat in makeup for 4 hours, but then it's just a good time.
I mean, it can't be painful because he did it 34 more times.
Okay, well.
We mentioned him before when he previously guest starred, but he's best known for Total Recall, Tango and Cash, Naked Gun, 33 1/3, as well as this role. So he's been in stuff. Dukat is also in the running for one of my favorite reoccurring characters. He's so good. And he has quite a journey to go through. So
while we're talking about these guys and the necks and stuff, there's the 3 Cardassian guys that put the stuff in their locker or whatever.
Yeah.
Are all Cardassians bros? Is that the whole idea?
Pretty much.
It makes sense.
We'll meet female Cardassians.
Yeah.
But
they did. They definitely felt because they all walked down it's a good pump kind of a thing.
That was a good score, bro. It's something about that scene. I don't know if I wasn't paying close enough attention to see if we could see their mouths moving or whatever, but there was a very voiceover kind of feel to the whole thing.
Yeah,
it's probably dubbed in later.
It is very much that kind of thing of whoa, you got to voice every emotion as things are happening because you're I'm pretty slow. And
going back a minute, that scene between Ducat and Cisco in his office, where he's like, "Oh, this was my office till a couple weeks ago," because he was out of the station.
Right.
He knows Odo, he knows Kira, he knows Quark. But that whole thing about, well, Cisco's like, just come visit whenever you want. He's like, well, we'll be helpful. That was just so delicious. The back and forth.
Cool. Yeah.
And Cisco has his number, but he has Cisco's number. So
Yeah.
But then Cisco outright lies to him. Says, I don't know about this orb that you mentioned, which again is something Picard would never do. Because Ducat's like, I know you came back here with that orb. And Cisco's like, what orb? What are you talking about?
Ducat did the same thing, didn't he? On the
Later, yeah.
He says,
I love that. I remember when the Cardassians were sort of introduced in TNG. Just that style. Was that him? Wasn't it? One of the first.
He played Gul Masat.
It just really sold me that feel of like that
the reptilian.
Yes, but the Cold War espionage kind of banter. That kind of like the whole
He is my second favorite Cardassian on DS9.
is Courtney your favorite?
wormhole.
My favorite is Garrick. You haven't met Garrick yet, but Garrick is awesome. He is the tailor on the station. He runs a clothing shop. And he's definitely a spy.
Yeah.
He's definitely he's like the guy that was probably running their version of the KGB, but now he's just a simple tailor.
Love it.
He's just a simple tailor.
Yes.
He doesn't have any connections or hands in that world anymore.
Taylor, Tinker, Soldier.
Also, all the fan fiction is that Garrick and Bashir definitely had a gay relationship.
Oh, okay.
I remember seeing
Like that Bashir was bi and Garrick was fluid, and they just that Bashir was Garrick's bottom.
Yeah.
So Dax discovers the wormhole, and it's so clever. I mean, it's kind of like just a discussion and a throwaway, but she tracks all these historical events and figures out where it should be and all that. I really loved that. That was a nice demonstration of her skills and knowledge.
That might have been what the Cardassians said. Wormhole? That wormhole.
Yeah.
I think that is what.
Then we do the scheme thing. The effects of Odo melting out of the locker were so bad, and I don't think it get much.
He looked better coming back together, but going under, it was like, oh, what is this?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, not good.
The runabout, I don't know if you know, the runabout is like a bigger version of the shuttle. They have runabouts on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And it is called the Rio Grande. All of their runabouts are named after rivers.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll get it's some river in China, the Yangtze or whatever it is. Yeah, we'll get, those are the main ones.
And of course, the Great Vulcan River of
Vulcan.
No, they're all Earth rivers.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Probably because Jake and Cisco hang out at the pond, so... O'Brien having to kick the transporter to get it working to beam Odo back is awesome. It just shows you how janky the station is. And then we're about 4 minutes past the halfway point, about 75% of the way through the notes or more, and that's where part one ends. When they broke it up for broadcast, it really doesn't feel like that should have ever been two parts. Like it's one episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, those syndication type things there.
Yeah.
We come back, they immediately discover the wormhole. It's a stable wormhole, and it even has atmosphere, and they land in there, and they're seeing different landscapes, which is kind of interesting.
So, are we sure that that's what actually happened as far as them actually physically landing on something, getting out, and walking around?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Keith.
See, like later on, I was wondering if maybe that was all, that just being frozen there and it was like a mind trip.
I don't think so. I mean, they spit Dax out in an orb. It looked like an orb, but then it didn't. Wasn't anything.
Yeah,
they beam her back.
Well, so how would you account for the different things that they were seeing, though?
It was messing with their mind.
Right. So I mean, they could still have just been sitting on the ship the whole time without even realizing. It's sort of like an overlapped holodeck.
I guess they could have, but I took it at face value.
So the question I wrote, because first time I ever thought about this. So we see those different landscapes. What would have happened if Cisco had decided to sit down on the edge of a cliff while Dax is looking at him? Would he just be in the ground?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Because if they kept walking, would one of them fallen? Were they both fallen? What was the real thing? So
I can't explain that.
Well,
seems like
if it went on long enough, of course, the holodeck would malfunction, and one of them would have fallen off a cliff.
But yeah, I think that's the best argument I had for it all being like Professor X mind trip thing or something.
You could be right there. I honestly don't know. Cisco talks to people that are important to him. Mm-hmm. Jennifer, of course. Kaio Paka, who quickly became important. Jake. Picard, who is understandable. It didn't feel gratuitous because he has this beef for Picard.
Yeah.
And Patrick Stewart is excellent, of course. And then a baseball player that they don't identify. They don't identify.
Mystifying for so long, but it kept me in like, what is this about?
So they don't identify the character in the episode, and apparently that was to avoid rights issues. But in the book, they name him as Ty Cobb.
Ty Cobb.
Yeah, they name him as Ty
He's
Cobb.
one of he used to be the #1 hits leader. I think he's #2 now since Pete Rose, another stand-up guy, passed him. But yeah, I won't go into all the Ty Cobb details. Just rest assured, he's not a good guy. Good baseball player, apparently.
Ooh, so it's probably for the best they didn't name him.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a question here while we're here. And I like when Cisco is like, well, that's the thing. You never know what's going to happen and all this stuff and all the possibilities, which I'm a basketball fan. It's my favorite sport. It's my favorite sport to play.
Oh. Okay.
I'm a fan of many sports, but basketball is my favorite.
See, I don't know what baseball is the thing I would usually associate with.
Well, he's wearing a Mets
I am wearing a Mets
now.
jersey right now. It's summer. But and the Pistons have been terrible for a long time. But I haven't the Pistons have been terrible for as long as I haven't played basketball competitively against other people. But anyway, I always talked about the ball goes up in basketball, and even if they make it, if it goes right in, boom, or if it bounces around, it goes in. But if it hits the rim and bounces off, he kind of talks about all the possibilities. In baseball, it's a similar thing, except you're waiting around for a guy to throw the pitch. But even then, the pitch, where could it go? All this stuff, foul ball, that kind of stuff. I've also watched 3 baseball games live the last 3 days. But anyway, basketball to me has more of that, and there's more possessions and there's more going on.
Right.
So and it's my favorite sport, so I would like that. But I did like the way they related that to
linear time.
And
that was an interesting discussion. That whole aspect of the prophets not understanding linear time.
I got a few things about that, but before we move on to from the metaphor, just occurred to me as you were saying this, baseball would probably be one of the best things to pick because of the way that you have all the stationary positions, and there is this one motion that leads to this one effect, and so then much harder to express that in terms of basketball.
In baseball, nothing happens till the pitcher throws the ball. That's exactly. And I guess the analogy would be that he just hasn't been throwing he hasn't thrown a pitch since she died.
Well, in Star Trek continuity, baseball died out in the early 21st century. I'm not kidding.
No.
And then there are people trying to bring it back in the 24th, and Sisko's a fan. He keeps a baseball on his desk, and the baseball will come up more than once.
I hope it's not signed by Ty Cobb.
There is an episode where he makes the whole crew play baseball, so you'll get that eventually. Right. Yeah. But not last we'll see baseball. So what were you going to say about linear time, Keith?
The overall thing, I was finding more layers, and I think that I had seen previously. Of course, I might have forgotten about it. Who knows? But in general, as we've been rewatching the Star Trek series, I've been finding, as an adult or an older adult, certainly, that I've been finding understanding things in a different way than I would have the first few times I'd even seen it. I start to notice certain other kinds of things, like the difficulty whenever you come up with. This is not like the first time they've done. The concept of nonlinear time or beings that don't do like Dr. Manhattan is a good example of that.
Sure.
And even then, it's so hard to express in a way that an audience can understand how they actually experience it. They give you little glimpses, but I think they kind of neatly went around this by focusing on Sisko trying to convey it to them. So we process, if I were this person, I wouldn't really understand it in this way. And that was pretty clever and kept your attention right on that.
Yeah, I thought I thought once we got there, it's like, oh, okay, this is really good and very evocative. And I thought, as you guys know,
it just went on way too long.
It took too long to get to where we were going, which is a common complaint for me on Star Trek and the rest of life. It's so long. Let's get to where I want to be. No, I'm kidding. Kind of. But as far as advanced races, learning, or species with races, whatever, learning about humans go, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't a test.
I will say it did remind me a bit of the Encounter at Farpoint because it was an advanced species.
Yep.
And it was kind of a test because they told Sisko, "You're hostile. You're coming in here. We'll just get rid of you."
That's what I especially thought.
And he had to defend humanity the way Picard had to defend the Q.
Wow.
Except it is very different context, but on broad strokes, it's kind of similar. Which it was very interesting that Star Trek went right back to that well.
But it was the translation again. It seemed a little bit more thorough than, or I think they committed harder to it than I've seen in the past.
Yeah.
There weren't shortcuts in the sense of they would not pass. Sensations? What? It's just, they weren't just jumping right to, I get it.
Yeah, and so the rest of the podcast, I'm just going to be making analogies to other shows and connecting them, or just media. But I thought having Sisko go through seeing his wife again And of course, they have. It's a little different. Well, no, it is the same because they have no. They really don't understand linear time and death.
Mm-hmm.
So it reminded me of the movie Starman. If you guys have ever seen that, John Carpenter movie with
I might have seen it once, but I forgot.
Jeff Bridges, Karen Allen, and essentially in that movie, I'll just give away the beginning. Karen Allen's husband dies, Jeff Bridges, or he has died, and she's watching old movies of him and crying. Essentially, this alien crashes near her. And he takes on all the affectations of her dead husband, and then slowly grows to learn those. And so I thought it was like that was kind of a corollary to this, not the exact same thing, obviously, but she was going through all these experiences with her dead husband just so these guys could figure out one, they could get him back to the mothership or whatever,
right?
And so he essentially learned about Earth, and it was a similar thing. Actually, this might be Star Trek ripping off Starman because he was here to learn about Earth, and we didn't know the whole. We still don't know the whole thing, so it's kind of open ended. But I thought of that too, and I mean, it definitely that might be why I got so roped in with Cisco at the end when he's crying and everything.
Well, the wormhole aliens got fed up with him, closed the wormhole, and then reopened it, which is funny because they don't live in linear time. So why?
Right.
Anyway,
There you go. Exactly my point. It's hard to. I mean, they're acting in ways that do affect linear time from their human's perspective, but how do you... I think maybe the whole point was it hurt them in some way to interact with them in that level, but they didn't really understand how that they...
But then it must be fine because then they let everybody use the wormhole after this,
Right.
and it doesn't hurt them.
I don't know, yeah.
Well, I guess it's like that Stephen Wright joke. It's like, the wormhole's open 24 hours, but not in a row, because they don't understand linear time.
So, I don't have any other notes about the time inside the wormhole. It was long. It was too much. I liked it a little bit, but it wasn't my favorite part of this.
It was too much trippy. I liked where we got eventually.
I've got a couple things, though.
I have a few more notes. But
The concept, though, this is another one of those things I wasn't sure about whether I'd caught it before, but I got something... I felt more fulfilled this time.
Yeah.
There's something about the concept of how they were, the moments they were choosing, or rather the moments that he was choosing for their benefit without realizing it, but also they were still using the scenes for symbolic purposes. They kept coming back to the baseball thing, and it was like a little puzzle. Why are you doing it? What do you...
Right.
Oh, now I get it. You think that this is something bad because of this aggressive thing. This is not aggression.
Right.
This is just a game.
Yeah.
We're doing this for fun.
Yeah.
And then why is this fun? Because and even explaining the concept of unpredictability.
Yeah.
In that sense, getting that across. This would not be fun. Our lives would not be satisfying if we didn't. So spoilers, in other words, they had to understand why spoilers are bad.
Colleen's always like, I love surprises.
I hope I don't dissuade you from this show, but this won't be the last time we see Cisco talk to them.
Yes. No wait.
I enjoyed these creatures.
I don't think it's usually like this long.
Yeah.
It's more contained.
Okay.
After this.
Well, and it got me to thinking about, and I'm going to compare to, what I might consider the greatest episode of Star Trek, and another one that other people do. But I thought it made me think of City on the Edge of Forever. They go through Guardian, they go through the Guardian of Forever, and they're gone for a long time. But remember, they come back. It's like 10 minutes, and it just dawned on me while thinking about it, like, wait a minute, that's what the Inner Light is. The Inner Light is the same damn. It's not the same story, but it is pretty much the same story.
It's such a good story.
It's the same concept, and then this is not the same, but it's definitely similar in that he's going back and experiencing these things that he's already experienced.
There must be some truth to the religion, though, or else the wormhole aliens gave Kaiapak a head up, because Cisco is the emissary. He did find the temple. He did communicate with them.
Yeah.
So, and he's got more ties to them. We'll explore as we go on. His role as the emissary is something that we explore through 7 seasons. It's not like he found the temple, it's done. No, it's a big thing.
Okay.
Was that the temple then? Them landing on that, and so there's references to some guy who had the skies open up, eventually the wormhole itself.
Oh, the whole wormhole's the temple.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That,
We didn't land on the temple landed on us.
I misremembered somehow, like, I don't know why I thought we would always see, like, this swirling black hole always there or something, but it was more like a...
No, only when you go through it.
Right.
You can't see it when you're not going through it.
Okay.
It's probably because of the theme song you see it swirling.
I think the main takeaway from that was that Jennifer used to love blankets.
She did.
Yeah.
She was such a soda blanket.
That I don't know. That shouldn't have been as funny to me as it was at the time. But what is pleasure moment when they were face to face? That would have played differently in TOS.
Yes.
That would have occurred things like that. You would have
I'll show you what pleasure is.
I thought the question was going to be because I thought she was going to ask what is this kissing thing, and they pretty much had that conversation.
Yeah.
Like we like touching or whatever, and so it was very much the. Wink. No, not wink of an eye. By any other name, I think. That's what I'm thinking.
The rhetorical question they asked on a couple of occasions, what could possibly be more beautiful than the sound of children playing? I can think of a few things.
Me too.
Myself.
Me too. I'll give you one. Jennifer.
There we are. So, the highest stakes sports metaphor of all time. That's what I put. And then I think that's it.
So outside the wormhole, they need to move the station out of orbit around Bayshore in front of the wormhole, which is close, but I mean they only use thrusters. They didn't use impulse engines or warp engines. So they're still close to the planet, but now they've moved the station. And that whole science-y thing of Dax and O'Brien wanting to move it. O'Brien said it's going to take 2 months, and Kira says I need it tomorrow, so O'Brien has to be Scotty and do it. It's because I get why she's so insisting, because they need to stake the claim. This is going to be all the commerce for this will rebuild her world if they can stake that claim. And just the whole way it goes down and the whole bubble around the station and all. I just thought all that was exciting and fun.
That was a good stuff.
Before you move on,
we get to see the crew being awesome.
Before we move on from that's a great part for a great establishing thing for O'Brien there too, having to be that guy. Yeah. So you're a scientist. You're a technician. Somebody asks you a question. Yeah, this is the answer how to do that. Yeah. But wait, I have to think of something else. Maybe I can think of something else. Yeah. Being forced in those situations to start to be that guy. To
that same point when he's given the update at the top of the episode, it's like, I already felt like he's the Scotty, like, here's the deal.
He is.
Everything is jacked up.
And he's got to pull it together with he's the MacGyver. He's got to pull it together with chewing gum and paper clips.
And I enjoyed that very much.
Well, just when they asked him, like, Kira's like, raise shields, and Brad's like, what shields? We don't have shields. Eventually they'll get shields, but right now they don't have shields. O'Brien and Kira mentioned, what do Cardassians do to prisoners? Well, we just had that Picard episode. So it should be, if you're watching both, it should be fresh in your mind.
As Keith said, they're going to show you a bunch of lights. Ask you to count.
Cisco kept coming back to the Saratoga, which is great. It was a moment. Kira's bluff, where she fired all their torpedoes, that was such a good bluff. And O'Brien's like, what happens? That's all of them. She's like, who cares? If this doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Yeah. As Keith said, he should have said something about, I can't play poker with you. Yeah. He mentioned some other game.
I enjoyed that gambit.
Oh, yeah. I think he mentioned some sort of fictional, science fiction-y variation of poker.
Yeah.
But
we saw him play poker, so it should have been poker.
But
I mean, that was a missed opportunity for a fan service line, like a drop a Riker name or something.
Yeah. Yeah. She was very much like, I have nothing left to lose, or don't put baby in a corner, or you don't attack a cat in a corner, or whatever.
The line she said was, we're not going to win this with torpedoes. I feel like I've heard that somewhere else before, like some sort of war thing, but...
Hunt for Red October. I don't know.
I almost bought it, right there. I was like,
the promenade looked very small as it was exploding, but it was cool the way they were destroying everything.
Yeah.
So, kids, yes, Jemmy likes destroying things. Destruction is cool.
It is, in this aspect. So Kira gets all the way up to where she's about ready to surrender before the Deus Machina comes through, which is great.
Did you guys all felt the Deus Machina coming, right?
But then Cisco came out towing Ducat's ship, which I don't think Ducat will ever forgive him for. I think that's part of their animosity from here on out. And then we had that wonderful scene between Picard and Cisco where Cisco doesn't hate him anymore because he got over his hang-ups with the Saratoga.
Yeah.
And then we had the really great scene between Quark and Kira where he makes a move on her and she's like, I will break your hand, basically. Which was beautiful.
Dude, I mean, human women date Ferengis, do we think?
Yeah. Just stay tuned.
Okay. All right.
Just stay tuned. We will see human women with... Bajoran women, close enough, right?
Yeah.
We will see a humanoid woman date a Ferengi.
I guess the way it's always portrayed is that they're so aggressive and over the top, terrible, that it doesn't matter what they look like. But
so the further we go into Deep Space Nine, the more layered Ferengis will get. And you will meet them as individuals and learn they aren't all the same.
And maybe that's the point, is that as much as we're like, what? I'm being a nice guy. I'm just saying how hot you are. It's like, that's not the way that works, guys. You look really ugly.
One of the Ferengis on the show marries a Bajoran woman.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I won't tell you which one.
All right.
But yeah.
While we're talking about hot, no, I do have two fashion notes. These are my last two notes. Of course, Jennifer, all of her stuff, her park dress with the one strap looked great. And I thought she was in different swimsuits, and I realized, nope, that's the same one.
Yep.
Swimsuit? Oh, yeah.
From the
Jennifer,
top,
yes.
yeah. Which I think she had her... Didn't she have it undone to get a better tan?
She did.
Yeah, at the top.
Oh, right.
Pretty,
Yeah.
I would say racy for Star Trek, but no, it's Star Trek. My last one is a negative note about the Bajorans, and this is about our Koipaka, or whatever, I guess. Kayapaka. I felt like her and the other folks down there on the planet, it was like a shabbier version of the Tyr from Friday's Child, if you want to go way back to TOS.
The other guest star we had this episode was Joel Sweto, who played Gol Jasad, who was the one that causing all the trouble while Dukat was in the wormhole. He will do an episode Next Gen as a different character coming forward, and an episode of Star Trek Enterprise, and at least a Voyager video game. I don't think he was in Voyager. But yeah, he was just a typical villain. It was fine. Not as good as Dukat. Ranking the episode, we'll rank the episode first. Best episode so far.
I think so.
I think it's in the middle.
I think so.
Maybe toward the bottom.
I agree.
We do that every time we
Yes!
at the beginning of the season. I would like to continue the drink and annoyance. I'm going to add a third one for Deep Space Nine. We're not going to do.
I was wondering what we were going to add.
We're not going to do. Well, yeah, we've added a new one for each series we've done. I'm not going to do like how annoying is a particular kid, but we'll just do who was the annoyance of the episode. Who you're going to get a drink with, and because it's Deep Space Nine, I think we need to do who was the shady person in the episode. Who was the shadiest?
Shady.
Who was the shadiest? Because everybody in Deep Space Nine is shady at one time or another. So let's start with drink. Who are you going to have a drink with?
I'm not going to do this every episode, I promise, but I mentioned Kira reminds me of my first wife. I'm going to have a drink with her because she would be fun. And I really like, I separate from my wife, I like the character of Kira and non-visitor.
I'm going to get my exploitation out of the way and say Jennifer, I think, at this point.
That's a good one.
We can talk about her husband and everything, whatever.
I was also going to choose Kira because she reminds me of Ro in the best ways here, and she's just such an interesting character. Like, she's strong, and her whole background is a rebel, but she can still like hold her temper in check in the right circumstances.
Yeah,
I like her a lot. Kira was my favorite lead character coming out of the pilot right away. This viewing,
there was I think you said the phrase you used before is she was already like fully formed right out of the gate.
She sure was.
Yeah, delivery, everything was just on point, and I didn't feel like she was over the top for things. It was just her like bristly or abrasiveness was justified in under pretty much every circumstance. I didn't feel like she was just like all the time.
Who is your annoyance?
Kira. No, I'm kidding.
I gotta go Bashir.
That's the doctor, right?
Fair,
yeah, that's where I'm going.
I would have gone Jake, I guess, maybe just for the little bit, but
Sure.
I think I'm doing the whole thing where I'm thinking too far ahead with the doctor, so I'm not, not as annoyed as I could be.
I certainly like some things the way Bashir develops, but right now he comes off.
You know what? I'm changing my mind, Bashir. Yeah,
Bashir.
That's fine.
He comes off all the wrong ways.
Yeah.
If we didn't have that moment where he was a competent doctor at the end,
yeah,
he's definitely no Bones McCoy or Beverly Crusher. And who was shady this episode?
Probably Dukat, because he was like really playing it up, and I liked it, but that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Dukat was the shady one. He was the whole veiled threat thing.
Yeah,
was
I can go.
God, that line though, it was so just like a wormhole.
Yeah.
What? Wormhole.
And I just love Dukat so much as well. Cisco gets honorable mention because he does several kind of shady things where he blackmails Quark and he lies to Dukat. He's already showing his differences. But I'm going to go with Dukat. Next week, we're sticking with Deep Space Nine.
Yay.
We're going to watch Past Prologue. Tana Los, a former Bajoran terrorist during the occupation, asks Cisco for asylum on Deep Space Nine. Meanwhile, the station's last Cardassian inhabitant, Garrick, possibly a former spy for the Cardassian government, proves an interesting mystery to Dr. Bashir. So we're going to get Garrick and immediately start his relationship with Bashir, which is a great joy.
I'm like remembering little bits about that, but yeah, there was something so fun about that.
Anytime Bashir was with Garrick, he wasn't annoying. So I'm excited this is episode 2 that we've got to do. Until then, live long.
And get on with your life, and
Life?
prosper.
What life?
Linear.
What is linear?
Wait, I had an alternate
How do you
episode.
what is get on?
Real quick.
Essentially, what everybody on the Enterprise is doing while they're in dry dock, instead of going down and hanging out.
That's the next episode, next shit. No,
What?
it's not. No, it's not. It's
Okay.
not.
All right. Anyway, sorry. So live long and prosper, and think about that.
What is prosper?
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?